Hey there, welcome over here to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you 6 new sheet pan recipes. All of these recipes come together in no time at all, and they are kid-friendly and adult-friendly, so they are just deliciousness. But anyways, I really hope you enjoy it, and let's go jump over to my kitchen and start cooking. We're kicking today off with probably one of the best ways ever to make a quesadilla. So in my pan, I have a pound of ground beef. I'm adding 1 diced up white onion to that ground beef. Just crumble the ground beef up and cook it completely through. Once it is totally cooked through, just remove any of the excess grease. And then you'll add in 2 tablespoons of your favorite type of taco seasoning, along with a half a cup of water. Stir everything together and let this simmer on your stove for about a minute or two. The last few ingredients I'll be tossing in is just a can of drained and rinsed black beans, a drained can of corn, and 1/4 cup of salsa. Use any type of salsa you like or have on hand. Go ahead and stir this to combine and then remove it from the stove. You'll need 2 sheet pans for this recipe, but for the first sheet pan, I'm spraying it with plenty of nonstick spray. And then I'm going to pull 7 tortillas out. These are the large burrito-sized tortillas, and they will overlap a little bit. Just line them around the sheet pan and then place one in the center. After I dumped that ground beef mixture out on those tortillas and spread it out as even as possible, I'm going to be sprinkling about 1.5 cups of cheese on top. I just used Colby Jack cheese and cheddar, but use any type of cheese you like. I sprinkled the top with 2 sliced green onions, but that is optional. And now I'm folding the tortillas in to ensure that the cheese and the ground beef mixture is covered with tortilla. Now with the back of this sheet pan, I sprayed it with nonstick spray, and then you'll be placing it right on top of your quesadilla, just like this. And then it'll bake in a preheated oven to 425 degrees for 20 minutes. After those 20 minutes, remove the pan on top and broil it for an additional 1 to 3 minutes or until the top gets crispy like this. If you've never tried a sheet pan quesadilla before, this is your time. You definitely have to try it. It has very minimal ingredients, it's delicious, and it made for great leftovers for lunch the next day. I figured this smoked sausage and squash sheet pan meal would be perfect for summer because a lot of people might be growing squash in their gardens this year. So I just diced up 2 zucchinis into smaller pieces like that. Next, I'm going to be slicing about 14 ounces of smoked sausage into discs. You could use any type of smoked sausage you like. And then the next thing you'll do is just do the same with 2 yellow squash. Over to this large bowl, you'll be adding your squash along with your sausage right in there, and then you'll add all of the ingredients that will give it some great flavor. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and just a little bit of salt and pepper to your taste. Go ahead and give this a really good mix. I'm plopping the zucchini and sausage mixture right on my sheet pan lined with parchment paper. I'm using parchment paper just for easy cleanup in the end. This will bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes or until your zucchini's to the tenderness you like it to be. This is my plate of food. I'm sure you could imagine this is really super delicious. It has great flavor, and I love how this comes together in no time at all. I have been loving making barbecue drumsticks recently just because drumsticks are a very super duper inexpensive cut of meat and they're delicious. So to get this one started, we're going to begin on the dry rub. In this little bowl, I added 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, a dash of salt and pepper, a teaspoon of onion and garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of paprika. Then you'll just mix this all together. After I placed my 8 drumsticks on my sheet pan lined with parchment paper, I sprinkled the dry rub all over the top, and then I'm going to rub it in with my hands to ensure that the drumsticks get really coated in it. This next part is optional, but I did have a few sweet potatoes lying around my house that I wanted to use up before they went bad, so I sliced them in half and put them on my sheet pan, drizzled 2 tablespoons of olive oil all over the top, and then sprinkled them with plenty of salt and pepper. This will bake in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 40 minutes, and then I took the sweet potatoes off because they were to the softness that I like them to be. And now I'm going to be drizzling plenty of barbecue sauce all over the top of our drumsticks, and then I'm just brushing it on with my little brush. This will continue to bake in your oven on 400 degrees for about 15 to 25 minutes or until they are cooked completely through. Here's my plate of food. I put butter on the top of my sweet potatoes. This meal is great, and it is also a perfect meal if you're trying to meal prep for the week because it warms up very nicely. Now I have to show you this classic pork chop and Brussels sprout recipe. I have a pound of Brussels sprouts right here. I'm slicing them in half, and I did remove the outside leaves on the Brussels sprouts that were a little bit damaged. So now that I'm through with that, over to my medium-sized bowl, I added my Brussels sprouts along with a tablespoon of olive oil. To ensure that this has plenty of flavor, I'm adding in a half a tablespoon of brown sugar, half a teaspoon of dried sage and rosemary, a dash of salt and pepper. Then you're just going to mix this all together. We'll set our Brussels sprouts to the side. Now we'll work on the panko mixture that will coat the pork chops. In this bowl, I added a cup and a half of regular panko breadcrumbs, salt and pepper to taste, a half a teaspoon of paprika, onion, and garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of dried oregano and sage. I also added in 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I didn't happen to catch me adding that in though. I gave it a good stir. Now we're working on the egg wash. In this bowl, I added 1/4 cup of milk along with 2 cracked eggs. Whisk this together. Assembling these pork chops really can't get any easier than this. I'm seasoning them on both sides with plenty of salt and pepper. I'm dipping them in the egg wash mixture and then over to the panko breadcrumbs. I'm making sure that the panko breadcrumbs do stick on the pork chops, and then I'm placing them on a sheet pan lined with parchment paper. Now that I have all 4 of my medium thick boneless pork chops coated in the panko mixture, I sprinkled the Brussels sprouts that we made up earlier all around them. This will bake on 425 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes. After that time is up, pull your pork chops out of the oven and then give them a flip and then cook them for an additional 10 to 12 minutes or until they are cooked through. Here's my plate of food. This was quite delicious. I do want to mention, if you want the panko mixture on your pork chops a little bit more crispy, go ahead and throw your broiler on after these are cooked for about a minute on both sides to make that panko mixture extra crispy. Now we're making chicken bacon ranch. To get this one started, I have a pound of red potatoes. I'm going to be cutting them into smaller pieces. If you don't have red potatoes, you could use golden potatoes, but I don't suggest you using russet potatoes. They just won't get very soft. So I placed my red potatoes in a large bowl, added 2 tablespoons of olive oil on top, and then I'm going to be adding about 1.5 tablespoons of this ranch seasoning mix. Go ahead and give it a good stir. Now that the potatoes are coated in the oil and the seasoning mix, I place them on my sheet pan lined with parchment paper. This will go in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 18 minutes. While it is baking in the oven, we're going to start on the rest of our ingredients. So I have 12 ounces of frozen broccoli right here. I'm adding it into the bowl that we coated the potatoes. I'm adding an additional tablespoon of olive oil with another 1.5 tablespoons of this ranch dressing seasoning mix. Give it another good stir. We'll begin to work on our chicken now. I have a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breast that I cubed in this bowl. To that chicken, I'm adding a tablespoon of olive oil along with a tablespoon of that ranch dressing seasoning mix, 1/4 cup of cooked crumbled bacon. Go ahead and give this a really good stir just to coat the chicken in the bacon and the seasoning. So after you are through stirring this all together, I pulled my sheet pan potatoes out of the oven, and now I added the broccoli to the middle of my sheet pan, and then my chicken bacon ranch mixture to the other side of my sheet pan. This will bake on 400 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes until the chicken is cooked through. I did sprinkle the top of everything with a little bit of paprika and salt and pepper before I tossed it in the oven. I'll be the first to admit I totally forgot to set a timer on my oven when I threw this in the oven, so I overcooked it by about 7 minutes. I was just playing with my daughter and totally forgot about it, but I served this with a side salad. The flavor in everything was unbeatable. Now we're making Parmesan chicken over asparagus with little potatoes. To get this one started on my sheet pan, I'm adding my potatoes. I did slice my potatoes in half like this so they cook a little bit quicker, and I am using these gemstone potatoes. I found them at my Walmart and I've been really liking them recently, but you could use red potatoes or golden potatoes if you can't find them. I drizzled the top with a tablespoon of olive oil, sprinkled them with salt and pepper. Now I'm mixing everything together. These will bake on 400 degrees for about 18 minutes. While they're in the oven baking, we're going to work on the rest of the ingredients. In this bowl, I added 3/4 cup of mayonnaise with a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese, a dash of salt and pepper, and then a little dash of paprika. Go ahead and give this a really good stir. So now it's been about 18 minutes later. I pulled the potatoes out of the oven, and now I'm sticking a pound of asparagus in the middle of my sheet pan. I did trim the ends off of my asparagus. For the chicken, I'm using a pound of chicken tenderloins. I'm just laying them right on top of the asparagus like this. And then with the Parmesan mixture that we made up, just spread that all over the top of the chicken. I baked this in my oven for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I threw the broiler on for about 3 minutes to make the top nice and golden like this. This was definitely a delicious meal. My family enjoyed it, and I love how I was able to throw the asparagus, the potatoes, and the chicken all on one pan, and you just cook it all together. I hope you enjoyed this, and I have plenty more videos like this on my channel, so make sure you subscribe down below the video so you don't miss any more in the future, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.